All right, well, I've mentioned our working papers a few times. Now I'm actually bringing you an example of one. This is the bank rec, as we see here, the bank reconciliation for Maya Company. And Maya being my wonderful cat, who is the star of the show, even if she does not know it. So it looks like she's in charge of the company now. This is for Maya Company's United Bank of the North, their general account. This could be depository account, savings account. This is one of their possibly many bank accounts. You see here, it says prepared by NP accounting firm. Over on this top right, we have prepared by, looks like JS, could have been the associate, prepared on 1/10 year 3. It's like I got to it the next day, and P, any guesses on who might that be? Looks like I reviewed it the next day and I signed off on it. All right, so this is kind of telling us right away, for anyone picking it up, what are we looking at? So now we have a general idea of what the heck we're looking at. The information on the work paper should be the name, date, purpose, page number. We'll see all of those procedures performed and conclusions reached, evidence, tick mark legend, initials. We're going to see all of that. Now let's read through the rest of it. We have the index number. Now, these are just indexing to other work papers, meaning if I have let's say a lead sheet, which is again just an executive summary of all of the separate bank recs, on that lead sheet, it might say C1, C2, C3, and those are the 3 different bank recs for the 3 different bank accounts, and it shows them all displayed together. All right, so that's what that's referring to. C4 over here, the reason right here, it says obtained cutoff bank statement. So C4 could be that bank statement. Confirmed by bank confirmation. C3 looks like that's probably the actual bank confirmation. So just referencing the different documents. So like this is document number 2, this is document number 3, document number 4. You see here B looks like in this case we are doing B for the trial balance. That's B1. So again, just linking together different things. If we're saying that there's a bank confirmation, well, where is that bank confirmation? It's C3, and if we opened up this file in the folder, it should be the next one, right? If this is C2, C3 should be right after it. Now let's look over what we've got. Balance for the bank statement and then balance for the book. We're reconciling the two. Balance for the bank statement looks like it's $450,000. And just as we've said, right, we want to be able to pick up this work paper regardless of our experience with this client and understand what's going on. So that's where tick marks come into play. And there are many. There are standardized tick marks, but a lot of firms just make up their own. You could easily just do 1, 2, 3, 4. You could do, you don't need all of these. I mean, that being said, larger firm procedures may have you use these. I'm not trying to say what you can and cannot use, but for the purposes of the exam, right, that's just what we're looking at here. Some standard ones, footed, essentially meaning it agrees. Over here, we see that C means C, confirmed by bank, standard bank confirmation. Again, that's where we'd say, okay, so this number is correct. We know it's correct because it was verified by a third-party source. Where is that third-party source? It's in the folder. Already, we're essentially, like, you can think of it, we're like detectives, and here's our evidence. Nothing's slipping through the cracks. Everything is getting checked and verified. There's nothing here that could be inputted incorrectly, right? Because we're all checked out. Now we add deposits in transit right here, and, well, we also have another tick mark. Looks like that was vouched to cut off bank statement, essentially verifying this number. Every number that is included needs to be verified, needs to be understood as to how it got there. Here we've got a listing of those outstanding checks that we're going to deduct and getting to the balance per the book. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how this specific bank rec works. I mean, I could go into detail on how every type of work paper works. Fixed asset schedule, depreciation schedule, all that. That's not the purpose of the exam. Don't worry about it. That seems quite above and beyond. And here we go. So it foots, it agrees, we're looking good. A few other items, right? Vouched to paid, clean check cleared with cutoff bank statement, vouched to statement from attorneys. Again, not to go too much into this one particular example, but this is where you see, okay, this is legitimately what you would be preparing if you were working for the firm. And then here we have the account number in the general ledger. So this is bank account, let's say 2, right? It's C2. But in the general ledger, it's account 4080. Maybe the next bank account is 4090. That would be what we're looking at there. And I've got another example coming up for you as well. Here's it's much more rough, right? But when we say we're working in Excel, here, okay, ABC, LTD, that's the entity. Here's the year we're working on. This is the cash and cash equivalents. And in this case, we've got, the different general ledger accounts. We've got the name. So just 4 different bank statements. We're going to take these. If it's an audited amount, generally we can say that, hey, it's an accurate amount. I mean, sure, we could do additional procedures depending on many factors, which we'll cover in the using the work of others lesson. And then here's the unaudited amounts for this year, any adjustments, and here's the audited amounts. We're going to record any variances. A lot of these work papers are just to essentially show, like, do we have any variances between what the client says they have and what they actually have? If there are variances, that's where we're going to document them in the aggregate and understand if it breaches materiality, looking through it all there. This is just another example of a standard looking work paper. Because I'll be frank, when I took this exam, it was before I started in audit. For reference, if anyone doesn't remember, I worked in tax and audit and then consulting advisory. I didn't know really what an audit work paper was when I was taking this exam. I think it is helpful to see what you would be doing if you were actually working in audit. Right? This is what you would be doing. You would be tying out these amounts, and I think it makes it much more tangible. So I hope you enjoy them, and let's keep moving on. Tick mark legend. I mean, just another example of many different tick marks you could see. I'm not gonna walk through each of these. I'll just highlight a few of them. I mean, if you have a variance, so let's say over here we do have a variance between the amounts that the client says they have and what we found. But let's say that variance is like $1, right? And we're dealing with a multi-million-dollar company. We would put IMM for immaterial difference. So yes, there is a variance, but it doesn't mean it's an issue. Recalculate RX. That's like we recalculated it essentially, and there's no exception. Foots, it agrees. Crossfoots. Just a couple of those here. Total sent. It agrees to different other documents. Agrees to trial balance without exception. A, B, C, D. Like I said, you could just make those up. So just kind of going through tick marks. You may see tick marks here and there throughout the exam. Maybe more in a sim, like an example. You have to interpret a work paper. You don't need to memorize particularly, anything like this, but it wouldn't hurt to kind of get familiar. And hey, if you are going to get into the audit field eventually, then it wouldn't hurt to study up on these as well. Lastly, some miscellaneous items I've got for you involving documentation. Oral explanations are not sufficient support for audit work. Similarly to if my middle school teacher says, how did you get the answer to that math question? And if I just tell it to her, no, put it in writing, especially for an audit, right? This is a big deal, a lot of money involved. Just put it in writing. I mean, that's kind of my take on it. Just why would you just not put it in writing? Also, I mean, it's just, so you tell something to someone, great, they agree and they understand, but then it's done. It's not in writing, so just put it in writing. Any oral explanations should be documented. So if a client's explaining something to you, you should whip out your computer, start taking notes, put those notes in the audit file. If predecessor auditor refuses access to documentation, right? So there was another audit firm that did the last year's audit and you're doing this year's audit. They refuse access to documentation. This isn't grounds for disclaiming an opinion or withdrawing. As we've seen before, if management doesn't give you what you need, there is a way around not having access to documentation. In this case, there are clear-cut ways. The beginning balances of financial statements, you can start there. You can review them, test them, assess risk, and then come to your own comfort levels. This is using what we call alternative procedures to get your work done. There are ways around. Now, if there's just absolutely no way, then yeah, this would be grounds for withdrawing from an engagement because it is a scope limitation. That being said, let's wrap up this wonderful section of engagement documentation. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of cpa.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started. So why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.